My name is Eugene Lundrigan. I'm the president of Sunlight Capital Management Canada, and it's my pleasure to be part of the Sprott Shifting Landscapes initiative. I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes on the impacts that I see from the COVID-19 pandemic. But before I do that, I would like to say that I hope everybody is staying home, staying safe, and I certainly look forward to a day when we can all hopefully be going about our daily lives in a more normal way than we are today. So I have four key changes that I see in the future as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The first one is I believe the world's going to get a lot bigger. And by that, I mean, I think we're going to see the redrawing of supply lines in areas like healthcare, healthcare related supplies, things like food and agriculture, pharmaceuticals, all the kinds of things that people would want to have closer to home. And I think that the pandemic has indicated that there are concerns with global supply chains in some of those areas. I think travel is going to get more difficult. I think borders, areas that have had very limited borders or easy travel across borders, I think that's going to be a challenge, certainly in the short run and probably more in the long run as well. And that's certainly going to impact areas like travel and cooperation between countries. The second area where I see change in the future is really how people think about companies and how companies get evaluated. And I believe that those valuations and evaluations will ultimately have impacts on companies' P&Ls. So, for example, some of the key areas that I think companies are there's an increased focus on companies related to include business continuity. So, how did businesses do in terms of their business continuity plans during this time? Were boards and senior management ready as it pertained to the pandemic? Did they have proper succession planning in place? So, I think that's going to be a key area going focus, an area that's probably been more of a focus than it has been in the past. Second area is, I think more and more companies will be scrutinized in terms of how they treat employees. That could be employees being more concerned about, do I have health and welfare plans at work? How was I treated during this pandemic? Does my company invest in my mental health? Did they keep employees on when there was a fall in revenue, when they were under a little bit of financial stress, but were able to potentially do that? Do I feel adequately protected in the workplace? Do I feel comfortable that I can come back to work safely? Do I feel like there's enough flexibility in my workplace as well? So I think employees will be thinking more about companies, not just on a dollars and cents from a salary perspective, but how do they feel in terms of their broader relationship with the company? I think a third area related to that would be there's going to be greater expectations on companies who take any kind of government support or money during this process to ensure that they've been acting responsibly with it, both in terms of their business activities, but also with regards to employees as well. Third key area that I think there'll be change in the future is we're gonna have a lot more government. I think it's really been amazing to watch how governments have acted quickly and in a coordinated way to the maximum effect, I believe, in order to try to limit the impacts of the pandemic. Probably equally as interesting has been the broad acceptance of the need for this massive government intervention. Really, regardless of political stripe, people all around the world have been very supportive of additional government activity. Talk about equity stakes in companies, talk about new areas of regulation, financial support from central banks, personal data tracking happening in a growing set of countries, most recently Australia being mentioned. I think all these things have very broad implications. The other thing that I think from a government perspective that to me is concerning is I think there's going to be more and more focus country by country by governments and less focus on multinational organizations and cooperation. I think that's something that I believe we should be very concerned about, particularly in areas like a pandemic where it's clear that global cooperation is something which is really critical to help minimize its impacts. Fourth area is I believe we're going to really be revisiting how we work. Through my whole work career, there's been a focus on less space per employee, more collaboration amongst employees. agile workplaces. And I think clearly the pandemic or the immediate response to the pandemic is putting a lot of those things in question. I think we'll also see more and more technology used for people to keep in touch, be it Zoom or just even the potential for Zoom-like technology to be used within an office so that too many people don't have to congregate close by. I think we're also going to see just a broader push to a virtual world. We've already seen it through this period where, healthcare and telemedicine have really picked up. We've seen tremendous pickup in online shopping. I think you're going to see more automation in jobs. I think we'll also see more people working from home in the future. Maybe not in a 2 or 3 month span like we've had right now, but I think it's clear that for many of us in many industries, the ability to work from home periodically is something that has been happening very effectively over this period. In terms of traditions to keep, the one that's really been striking to me is just how people have come together in their local communities to support each other. I've lived in a neighborhood here in Toronto for quite some time. I've never seen people so friendly. I had a case yesterday. One of the things that I've been doing to try to keep active over this period has been going out for bike rides. And I had a case yesterday where I stopped at a stoplight and some other people were crossing in front of me, and they stopped and said, "Hi, and how are you doing? And hope you have a great bike ride." And I can honestly tell you, I've never had anybody who was walking past speak to me on my bike before. So I think we really see people being tremendously supportive of each other, and I really hope that's something that we can keep. It's really something that it's made me feel really good. Finally, something that I think is maybe unlikely to bring forward, but could really be a benefit is if you think about what's happening today, it's really a very low probability scenario that's played out, and we've got to see the impacts from that low probability scenario. If you think about it, I think that's something that feels very similar to climate change in terms of a common good that we're all focused on, be climate in that case, global health in our case, low probability event, and the world hopefully coming together to find solutions to those circumstances. I think climate change is a interesting topic right now because we have seen a substantial decline in pollution as people have been working more from home. But we also probably have to realize in a weaker economy coming out of the pandemic, it's quite possible that climate change and impacts of climate change might take a backseat to some of our more near-term economic circumstances. So hopefully we can take some of our lessons learned here on a global problem, low probability event to see how we might be able to think about other things like climate change in that world. So those are the key things that I see coming out of COVID-19 and its impact on us in society. I look forward to hearing from other thought leaders in the space, and thanks again to the Sprott School for this initiative. Thank you very much.